I don't know how they come up with these lawyers. It's incredible. I think the actual host is a reasonable guy, and he's just surrounded by these clowns. And it just has to be frustrating. At any rate, they're going to be talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, and they're going to be talking about Joshua Zeminski, and they're not going to get anything right. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
Okay, let's play it.
On the docket tonight, Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, on trial for the murder of 2 people and shooting a third. Chanley Painter has the story.
I'm going to go ahead and play this. You may think, oh, come on, man, we've seen this a million times. But it's been a year, and they are still mischaracterizing what took place here. Listen up.
Protest rocked the Wisconsin city of Kenosha following the police-involved shooting of Jacob Blake. Blake's shooting, captured on cell phone video, appears to show officers following Blake to his car, then shooting him while his back is turned.
Okay, it's been a year now. Have we not now learned that the state has investigated this case and determined that the officer likely acted in self-defense? No mention of that anywhere. They're still going by this narrative that the officer just opened fire for no reason.
In the melee is 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. The Illinois resident crossed state lines on August 25th, telling local media he was there to protect property. By daybreak, he was a wanted person.
See, they make it sound as if, again, he crossed state lines to go to the protest to protect property. That is not what happened.
Video captured with a cell phone appears to show Rittenhouse running through the street as others race toward him.
Race towards him? They're chasing him. Why can't we just say that? Why can't we just say they are chasing him? It's obvious. He's running in front. They're running behind him. They're trying to catch up to him. That's called chasing.
Some accuse him of being a shooter. Then there are shots.
People are getting shot all around us. People are just getting shot everywhere, guys.
Video from a different angle of the confrontation shows the gunman firing multiple rounds as a crowd surrounds him.
The crowd tried to attack him. They just didn't surround him. You can see them trying to attack him. Why can't we say that? The one person clearly tries to stomp Kyle in the head. Is that not an attack? Now, you may think that the attack is justified, whatever, but it's still an attack.
Rittenhouse is charged with several felonies, including 2 counts of intentional homicide, attempted homicide, and possessing a deadly weapon while under 18. The gun charge in particular has been the source of heated exchanges between prosecutors and the defense.
As to 29593, that has to do with hunter certification. If an individual is out hunting, and that's what Mr. Binger was hanging his hat on. There is no allegation anywhere that my client was hunting on August 25th.
There's no dispute in this case that Kyle Rittenhouse armed himself with an AR-15 on August 25th, 2020 at the age of 17 years old. That's it. It's that simple. Now, if the defense wants to hide behind hunter safety regulations to try and excuse that behavior, then I'll simply quote back what Attorney Richards just said, which is, the defendant wasn't hunting.
Notice that they don't show any of the rebuttal by Mark Richards. The way that they edited this hearing makes it appear that Binger got the last word in.
Okay, now there's another person who has been charged for what they did that night. I want to put his mugshot up because this is really significant. There he is, Joshua Zeminski.
Looks like an honest person.
Let me show you the charges that he's facing. Again, same night that Rittenhouse fired his weapon. Arson of property other than building, disorderly conduct, use of a dangerous weapon, obstructing an officer. The allegation is that this man, Joshua Zeminski, fired his weapon into the air in the vicinity of Kyle Rittenhouse when he was being followed and chased by Joseph Rosenbaum, who Kyle Rittenhouse ended up shooting and killing, claiming self-defense.
All right, this is incorrect. That is not the allegation. Originally it was. And in fact, let's take a look at the original criminal complaint. Here it is, filed October 9th. There's only one count, disorderly conduct, use of a dangerous weapon. What does that stem from? Detective Howard further reports that the defendant was holding a black handgun, which he was holding in his left hand, pointing downward. Detective Howard reports that in reviewing multiple other videos, he was able to see the defendant and Kelly Zeminski in and around multiple other people on the streets, and the defendant was seen holding the handgun down at his side in said video. I can skip down a little bit here, and it says, Detective Howard observed a muzzle flash emit from the handgun and heard a gunshot at the same time. And you think, well, there it is. What's the problem here? The problem was this charge was dropped. They're not prosecuting Zeminski for this anymore. What are the new charges? Let's take a look. This criminal complaint was filed on January 26th, about 3 months later. Count 1, arson of property. Count 2, disorderly conduct, use of a dangerous weapon. And I know what you're thinking. Well, there it is. He's still being charged for it. No. Read the probable cause statement. There is nothing mentioned in here about a handgun. The dangerous weapon that they're talking about is the dumpster, the one that was on fire. There's nothing in here about a handgun. They dropped that charge. Now, why did they drop the charge, even though there is no doubt that Joshua Zeminski had a handgun that night and that he fired it? We know he did. There's no doubt about it. We have it on video. Why did they drop the charge? It's not like Mark Richards can't put Joshua Zeminski on the stand anyway and ask him about this incident. The whole deal with a gunshot going off is going to be heard by the jury. And they're going to have this dude up there. So it's not like they can hide what happened here by simply not charging him. I don't know what the strategy here is by the prosecution, but dropping this charge really shows that this is a political prosecution. They essentially don't want to charge Joshua Zeminski for anything closely related to the actual shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum. And so they moved away from the firing of the handgun towards the arson thing, which took place at a completely different time, earlier in the evening. Okay, so let's go back to the dumbassery.
So let's bring in the think tank. Got some questions for you relative
Think tank, oh brother.
to Joshua Zeminski. If in fact he is standing right near Rosenbaum, fires his gun in the air, and Rittenhouse is then turning around with his gun and claiming self-defense, does that help his case that someone else is firing his weapon? I can hear myself, I'm so loud. Firing his weapon in that vicinity.
Of course it does. Now, is it going to get Kyle exonerated? That depends on who you're talking to, okay? But there's no doubt that the gunshot going off while Kyle is running is going to help Kyle in his case. No doubt about it. There isn't a sane lawyer in the country that would not say, yeah, I would think that the defense would make some hay out of that. But listen to these idiots.
Does that help Rittenhouse at all, Kirk Nermy?
I don't think so, because he has to believe in a self-defense case that his life is threatened. You cannot just hear a gunshot and go start shooting
But it's
random
right next
people.
to him.
That's not how self-defense works.
Here's the issue. If let's say Rosenbaum is here and this guy is a few feet behind Rosenbaum and fires his weapon, would that help Rittenhouse at all?
Notice that the host tries to help the lawyer out here. He's saying, look, let's backtrack here. Kyle is being chased by Joseph Rosenbaum, and he hears a gunshot behind him. He's trying to clue this lawyer in that he's misreading this, and the lawyer doesn't even pick up on it. Listen.
In front of a jury. Go ahead, Kirk. I'm sorry.
Again, I still don't think so. Even if he's close, even in his proximity, these other men aren't the threat to him. It would be this other gentleman who just shot his gun. And he's not claimed any awareness to it. He's not said that his life was in jeopardy by it. This one shot in the gun, again, to me, Vinny, it doesn't accelerate much past the idea that you hear a gun start and you start shooting people. That's the analogy you're setting up, and I don't think it goes beyond that, and I don't think it helps him, because I don't think there's any way he can claim Zeminski's shot in the air put his life in jeopardy.
That's right. When you are being chased and you hear a gunshot going off, yeah, there's no reason to believe that your life is in danger at that point. Who is this man kidding? How would you like to have this guy defending you in court? How would you like to be facing charges and have that person as your lawyer? In case you were wondering who they bring in as experts, the dude on the bottom right is Kirk Nurmi, and he's famous because he defended Jodi Arias in her murder trial in Arizona. And here's the headline: Jodi Arias' lawyer, Kirk Nurmi, agrees to be disbarred over book about the case. He put together a self-defense argument for her. She was convicted of murder. So yeah, great job there. And now he's going to top it off by essentially getting disbarred, because why? Well, one of Jodi Arias' lawyers has agreed to lose his license to practice law in the state of Arizona over a book he wrote about his experiences during the case. Last week, Kirk Nurmi and the State Bar of Arizona announced both sides had agreed he would be suspended for 4 years after publishing information about the trial without Arias' permission. The State Bar, which issues licenses to practice law in Arizona, said Nurmi's book presented a negative view of his client and her case, along with disclosing confidential discussions he had with Arias and her family. Gee, I thought there was supposed to be something in the law about client-attorney privilege. Oh, and there's another interesting article here. Jodi Arias' ex-defense lawyer Kirk Nurmi disbarred over trial tell-all book. Again, this is about the Jodi Arias case. At first, he enjoyed the challenge and believed he would be able to help Arias, who was charged with first-degree murder, escape the death penalty. Nurmi told Hogan he grew to loathe Arias, her daily calls from jail, and her excessive needs. The case monopolized his time, thwarting his ability to work on other cases. Deciding Arias wasn't good for his career after all, Nurmi quit the public defender's office in 2011 and filed a motion to withdraw as Arias' attorney. Arias, who had a second court-appointed attorney, persuaded Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Sherry Stevens that Nurmi should be forced to continue what he started. Indeed, this is the responsibility of defense attorneys. Had Nurmi been able to quit, the state likely would have incurred much more expense, and the trial would have been further delayed as a new lawyer got up to speed on the years-long proceedings. So yeah, nice guy. Whatever you do, don't hire him.
Eklund, I heard you.
Oh, it just gets worse.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Kirk. Like, it's no. You shoot in the air. It could have been fireworks. It could have been another. So what if police officers shot someone else? So then, can we then give Kyle the pass?
Well, let me.
Yes. Again, she doesn't get it. She doesn't understand self-defense. It is quite possible that a police officer was shooting at somebody legitimately, justifiably. But if Kyle heard that and thought, had a reason to believe, a reasonably good reason to believe, that the sound of that gunshot meant that his life was in danger, it absolutely does strengthen his self-defense claim. And she doesn't understand that. Again, how would you like to have her as your defense attorney?
Let me give you, again, let me give you the scenario that the defense, I believe, will go with.
Again, the host is saying, oh, you have to be kidding me. Let me go ahead and set the stage here one more time for you, and let's see if we can get this through your thick skull of what's taking place. Again, I think that the host is a reasonable person here. He recognizes that the sound of the gunshot is obviously going to play into the defense's hands to some extent, and these guests are not figuring that out.
Is that Rittenhouse is being pursued by Rosenbaum, is trying to get away from Rosenbaum. He's following him. And as he's getting away from him, a man standing right behind Rosenbaum fires his weapon. Does that help Rittenhouse at all?
Of course it does. Again, I'm not saying it necessarily exonerates Kyle. That's for the jury to decide. But obviously it helps him. But she is too clueless to even pick this thing up, even though he's trying his best to help her out here.
No, because Rosenbaum has to fire the weapon.
False. And this is just plain stupidity on her part. There is nothing in the law that says that the threat has to be real. It only has to be believed, and it has to be reasonably believed. She doesn't understand self-defense.
We can't transfer this intent. So Rosenbaum has to fire the weapon, and he didn't.
Yeah, again, that's ridiculous. There is nothing in Wisconsin law that supports her argument here.
So that's why we have a murder trial, because...
Oh, brother. Now she's saying, well, that's why we have a murder trial. So this is a sort of a form of he's being tried, therefore he must be guilty. How could he claim that this is going to help him in his defense when he's up for trial? That's why we're having a trial, it's because he's guilty. So how could this help him? This is a lawyer.
Nima?
Vinny, I do not want to defend Kyle Rittenhouse, but this is such an incredibly hard case for the prosecution. I think he's a murderer. I think he should be convicted. But Wisconsin has an imperfect self-defense law.
Just about every state does.
So if he reasonably believes he was protecting himself, it's a complete defense. But even if he was unreasonable, but he believed that he was in imminent bodily danger, under Wisconsin law, even if it's unreasonable, it gets dropped down to manslaughter. So I have serious concerns. This is going to be a very challenging case for the prosecution for many reasons, many of which are political. But that Wisconsin law does not help the state, and I would have to agree that shots being fired around him does help the self-defense argument. But
notice that she's nodding her head. She is so stupid that she can't even recognize when the other lawyer is countering her argument. She made a claim that the sound of the gunshot can't help Kyle. He's disagreeing with her, and she's nodding her head. She can't even figure out the fact that this other lawyer is disagreeing with her. Yeah, you really want this lawyer on your team defending you?
Both the perfect and the imperfect there in Wisconsin.
All right. It's and let me put this up on the screen, or let me let you know that Zeminski is going to have his own trial that is scheduled before Rittenhouse's. September 8th is a jury status hearing. Then September 13th, the trial session begins. So we are tracking that. But of course, we're also tracking Kyle Rittenhouse's trial. Take a look, folks. It's sneaking up on us.
By the way, that one lawyer that spoke last, he's starting to figure it out. The previous time when he was up here, he's been on this a number of times talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. He got nothing right. Now he's starting to understand the arguments a little bit better. And he's saying, yeah, even if Kyle's belief was unreasonable, it still knocks the murder charge down to manslaughter. That's true. That's called an imperfect self-defense. I haven't talked about it much, but that's very much true. And if his belief is reasonable, he's even admitting that that is self-defense. He thinks that Kyle is a murderer, and he's making a claim here that if Kyle's belief that his life was threatened was reasonable, Kyle is going to be exonerated, or should be. like my video, subscribe to my channel, and whatever you do, don't hire any of these people to defend you in court.